Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking everything year 6 SATs, and it's around this time of year that I do a meeting for parents at school and explain to parents what they need to know about the SATs that are coming up this year in year 6. So I'm going to go through some information about that in this video, so stay tuned for the information you don't want to miss out on about that week. What are the SATs first of all? Well, the SATs is a term used to refer to the end of Key Stage 2 assessments. End of Key Stage 2 is the end of a child's primary school journey. So when they get to year 6, which is the last year of primary, they do these tests so that we can judge how far they've come on their primary school journey to see if they know what they need to know before they go up to high school. Some high schools use these SATs assessments to decide what groupings the children go into when they go into year 7. Other high schools like to do their own assessments when the children start their new school. Okay, so it all depends on the high school, but they are important, and we do want the children to do as well as possible. So when are they? Well, they're between Monday the 12th of May and Thursday the 15th of May this year, 2025. And over the course of that week, which will be a normal school week, the children will do several tests, and you can see those here. They'll sit SATs in the following papers. Grammar, punctuation, spelling paper 1 will be on Monday the 12th of May, followed by grammar, punctuation, spelling paper 2 on the same day, Monday. One of those papers I'll talk about in more detail is just a spelling paper, and the other one is testing grammar, punctuation, spelling, and all kinds of things that are related to grammar. Tuesday the 13th of May will be the reading paper, and that will be one paper on that day. And then Wednesday, the 14th of May, will be the first of the maths papers, which is arithmetic, and the second of the maths papers, which is the reasoning paper. And finally, on Thursday, they'll do their last test, which is the final reasoning paper. There is no assessment of writing as a SATs test, okay? Writing is assessed throughout the year by the teachers, looking at all the different pieces of writing the children have done throughout year 6. So there's no writing test, okay? The closest we have to get the children to do is that grammar test, but it's not a test of their writing. Writing is assessed separately by the class teachers. So how are they carried out during that week? Well, the tests take place during normal school hours. The children don't have to come in on any particular extra days or anything like that. So it'll be a normal week at school for them. However, they are carried out in exam conditions, which means the children are not allowed to talk from the moment their papers get placed in front of them on the desk to the moment they're taken away. It's really important that they know and understand this, because if they are talking, we could say that they are cheating on their test, and therefore there's a chance they would get no mark. So it is quite strict, the SATs, with how they're carried out. They are carried out under exam conditions. Once the test papers are completed, they are taken away and marked externally. Their school teachers do not get to mark their papers and have no control over what mark the child gets. It's marked externally, they're sent away. I've been a marker myself, and they're scanned into computers, and then people mark them separately. So the teachers have no control over their being marked. When will the results come back to school? Well, school will receive the results of the children from their SATs around in July, some point in July, and usually the parents will receive the child's results along with their normal school report. So at the end of the year, a report usually goes home, and when the year 6 children get their report, there'll also be their SATs results in there as well. That's how most schools do it. So the timings of each paper you can see there underneath. This is important because this makes the SATs quite tricky for the children. The grammar test, the first one, is 45 minutes, and the spelling test on Monday is 15 minutes. The spelling test is the only one that is not timed. Okay, so teachers can give children longer than 15 minutes. That's just there as a guideline. For example, if a child needs the teacher to repeat a word or repeat a sentence. So the spelling test is not timed. The others, however, are strictly timed. And once the children have had that amount of time, they can no longer answer any questions. So that's why it's important for children to practice doing the questions quickly. The most challenging of which would be the reading paper, this one, because in 60 minutes they have to read 3 texts. So that's the hardest one. So double check your child is able to read a quick enough pace. Arithmetic is 30 minutes. That's also quite a tricky one to get finished. But the grammar and the reasoning papers tend to be okay. Children tend to get through those papers. Sometimes we can have specific arrangements for certain children. So this is something to ask your class teachers and schools about. For example, if you feel your child has a particular need, they may have been diagnosed with something, or they may have an SEND plan or an EHCP plan, which is for children with SEND. They may qualify for additional time. That means they get a little bit extra time to finish. They may be able to have an adult read for them. That would not be for the reading paper. They're not allowed to read for them for the reading paper. They may be able to have an adult to scribe. So if handwriting is a particular difficulty for a child, or they've injured themselves, they've hurt their writing hand, then the school can organise for an adult to write for them. The child would tell the adult the answer, and then the adult would write it down for them. Use of prompts or rest breaks. For some children, sometimes it's appropriate for a child to have a rest break, or for an adult to sit next to them just to give them encouragement. Come on, don't give up, keep going. We've got this much time left. You can still get a few more questions done, that sort of thing. Also, if a child is ill or injured, please do let your school know, because they can organise for them to sit their tests later in the week or even the following week. However, they have to apply for a different timetable to do that. So if they are injured in any way, let the school know. If they are ill, let the school know as soon as possible so they can make arrangements. If a child doesn't turn up for the test and then doesn't take it the following week, they'll get a no score for that test. So it's really important that you keep the school informed. They are children after all. They get injured. They get poorly. So what are the results and how are they reported? So a school and a child will get a raw score, which is the total number of marks achieved for each paper. So how many marks they got on the paper, that's called their raw score. Then it's changed into what's called a scaled score, which I'll explain in a minute. And then they'll decide if the child has met the national standard. So have they passed, I guess, or have they got above the national standard, which we call greater depth, or are they slightly below the national standard? Now, how they work it out is that their raw score will equate to a scale score. Now, if their scale score is 100 or more, then that's meeting the national standard. That means that they've passed. If their scale score is higher than 110, between 110 and 120, then they'll be given a score of greater depth. Let me just show you what I mean. So here on this table, you can see lots of different numbers. The raw score columns, they're how many marks the child got on the test. And next to them is what's called a scale score. Now, the reason that it's done this way is because the raw score can be different for different years. If the government feel like not many children have done well on the paper, it was a particularly difficult paper like with reading, then they'll bring the pass mark down. So I've circled a few different marks here because here you can see 24 had a scale score of 100. That means that if you got 24 on this reading paper, you passed. Same with 25, 26, and anything above that. However, on some years, the pass mark would be 26, and that would be a scale score of 100. But usually, the pass mark for reading is somewhere between 22 and 26, depending on the paper. For maths, you can see there's a lot more numbers here, and that's because the children do 3 tests, and what they do is they add up those tests together. So they add the arithmetic and the 2 reasoning together, and then they give them a mark, which is a total of those 3. And if it equates to a scale score of 100, then that is a pass. So you can see here that the pass mark on this year was 56. However, it can be higher than that. Some years it can be 58, and it can be lower than that. Some years it can be 54. But it's usually between the range of 54 and 58 that is the pass mark when you add those 3 papers together. For grammar, it hasn't really changed, to be honest. The pass mark for grammar has pretty much been 36 for the last few years. And again, just bear in mind that is the spelling and grammar paper added together. The spelling is 20 marks. The grammar paper is out of 50. So they only need to get a combined score of 36 from both those papers in order to pass on the grammar. So let's have a look at what these tests involve. So grammar paper 1, as I said, is 45 minutes long and it's worth 50 marks. Okay, they're tested on grammar, punctuation, spelling generally. Paper 2 is just a spelling test. Around 15 minutes it'll take, and they'll get 20 words. Let's have a look at what it looks like inside. This is what the test would look like for spelling. The teacher would have to read out, let's say for question 1, there was a blank in the field. The teacher would read, there was a lamb in the field. The word is lamb. And the child would have to write the word in this gap here correctly to be given a mark. Okay, and they would go through the same for each of the 20 words. How you can prepare for this? Well, a lot of the spellings that they're tested on are called common exception words. Here's a list of them. You can get these online. I'll pause the video and write some of them down. I'll copy it. I'll take a photo. But these are some of the words they'll be tested on. So to prepare your child, just see if they can spell these words. Maybe practice 5 of them sort of every week between now and the SATs. The grammar paper then, which is out of 50 marks, questions look like this. I've got a full walkthrough video of the grammar paper on the channel, so please check that out. It's from the 2024 paper. I'm not going to go through these in much detail because those walkthroughs are there, but essentially the children are asked these kinds of questions. Sometimes they have to join things up, socialize, relationship, childish. Sometimes they have to put punctuation in. Where's the comma go? Capital letters, full stops, that kind of thing. Sometimes they have to work out if the sentence makes sense. So the autumn leaves were crunching. We did a great job, so they have to circle the correct word. Sometimes they have to work out antonyms and synonyms. Antonyms meaning opposites. So here, the opposites were proper and improper, so they'd have to tick it. Notice it says tick 1. If they tick 2, they would get no mark. Each of those questions on the grammar paper is only ever worth 1 mark, and it's out of 50. So they get 50 questions. The reading paper, so this paper is going to be Tuesday the 13th of May. It's a challenging paper usually because it's 60 minutes long, and the children have to read 3 different texts in that time. They could be non-fiction, they could be poetry. We keep thinking poetry is going to come up this year because it hasn't come up in a long time. But they would have to read 3 texts in that time and answer questions on each one of them. Now, given that it's 60 minutes long, we try to train the children to say, let's split that up into 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So a good thing to do with your child is, if you're going to do one of these past papers, to time them. Can they get through the whole thing? Because some ways children slip up or don't pass is they don't get through the whole paper. So they really have to be quick with their reading and going through their questions. Just something for you to be aware of. When helping your child, the reading paper tests the children on different reading skills. These are called content domains, but 3 of them come up way more than others. For example, 20% of the marks on the reading paper is usually on word meaning questions. Over a quarter of the marks are on retrieval questions, and almost half are on inference. So ask your child, do they know what these reading skills are? And then have a look online to see if you can find some of these types of questions, because if they can do these, they stand a good chance of passing. Let's have a look at some then. Retrieval questions are about finding the answer, and it's usually there in the text. So who knocked on the door? The answer will be a person. They just find it, write it down. Where was the tournament being held? The answer will be in the text. They just write it down. So retrieval tend to be easier questions to answer. Word meaning questions, I always say to the children, will start pretty much with the same phrase: find and copy a word or a group of words, and they have to find a word and write it down. So this says, find and copy one word which shows that Yuri was not very careful when he put Veronica's bag down. In this test, the word was dumped. Because he dumped the bag down shows that he didn't put it down carefully. Now, if you had written, he dumped the bag down, that would be no marks, because it clearly states in the question, copy one word. So something for your child to be aware of with these word reading questions: if it says copy 2 words, write only 2. If it says copy 1 word, write only 1. And the most tricky of all the questions on the reading paper are inference questions, and this is just one example. They can be worth 3 marks. And usually they get asked about characters' feelings, how they know characters feel a certain way, what impression do you get of a character tends to come up. And with these, you need to give 2 points, at least supporting one with evidence. If you can do that, you'll get the 3 marks, because that's what it says in the mark scheme. So if I say, okay, Penelope was brave and she was determined, because in the text it said that she went into the haunted house, that would get me 3 marks, because I've said she's brave, she's determined, and I've backed it up with some evidence. On to the maths then. So the first math paper will be on Wednesday the 14th of May 2025, and it's 30 minutes long, okay? This paper is worth 40 marks. There's usually about 36 questions, some of which are worth 2 marks, and this is testing them on their arithmetic. So the questions will be on division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, fractions, bid mass, percentages, and decimals. There is a full walkthrough of me going through the arithmetic paper from last year on the channel, so please check it out. That will really give you more idea of what the arithmetic paper is about. Just some other things to point out. Some of the questions will be worth 2 marks, so please encourage your child to show they're working. They can still get 2 marks for just writing the correct answer. However, if they got the answer wrong, they could still get a mark for showing they're working. One other thing to be aware of. Out of the 3 maths papers, the arithmetic one is the easiest one. And we train the children at our school to try and get as high as possible, and I'll tell you why. If we remember back to the pass mark for maths, it was around 56. Now the arithmetic paper, the first paper, is out of 40. If they get 40 marks, full marks, or even close to 40, that means to pass they would only need 16 marks from the other 2 maths papers. That is only 8 marks on each. Now, considering the other 2 papers are out of 35, giving them a high score in arithmetic really puts them at a good chance of passing overall. So go with your child and rehearse and practice that arithmetic. The reasoning papers are more difficult, however. The first reasoning paper will be on Wednesday, the 15th of May, not Thursday, sorry, that's a mistake. And the third paper will be on Thursday. They're 40 minutes each, and they're worth 35 marks each. The reasoning is more tricky because it can assess the child on a range of different topics. Shape, data, statistics, time, worded problems, lots of different things. Here are some examples. So there's a worded problem. You've got one here that's about measurement, kilograms, and mass. You've got a worded problem here about fractions. There's a lot more for the children to do. They have to read the question, work out what the maths is they need to do. You've got one here that's on a bar chart pictogram. This one, a typical kind of question that always comes up. It's worth 2 marks. Buy 1 box for £1.90, get the second box half price. Ali buys 2 boxes, so you'd have to show your work in here, so you could get a mark at least. If you bought one at £1.90 and the second box was half price, you have to add that full price to a half price box and get the answer. Again, if you show your work in, you get the answer wrong, you could still get a mark. So it's always good to do that. But if you just get the answer here and it's correct, you'd still get the 2. More questions. You've got questions on angles. Okay. So how can you help prepare your child for the SATs? Well, first of all, if you're worried about any of the tests, parents' evenings will be coming up soon. Or if not, make an opportunity, a meeting to meet with your child's teacher and just talk about any of the papers that you might be worried about, or how you can best help your child, or what the assessments the children have done in school, because they've been doing mocks throughout the year. Which questions is it that they need to work on? Do a little bit of work at home and help them if you can, especially during the Easter holidays, because that's right before the SATs. But encourage your child to not be anxious, not to get too worried about it. If the child is really worried, they're not going to do well on the day anyway. So try to keep them relaxed. And plan something nice or fun for the weekends before and after SATs, just to help them to keep them in a relaxed mood. And make sure they're eating, drinking, and sleeping well, and not getting too worked up or worried. Just something that I mentioned to parents is that please, that if you can, be on time for school on the week of the SATs, because most schools will have a strict timetable they're following, and if your child is late, they might have to do their tests separately away from their the rest of their class. So being on time is really important. And again, remember, if they don't sit a test, they'll get an overall no score, and that'll affect their overall pass mark or not. So the last thing I want to say is thanks for watching, and I hope you found the video useful. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you found the video helpful. I will be doing more videos in the run-up to SAT, so please check those out on the channel. And again, remember, there are other videos on the channel of walkthroughs of the arithmetic paper, the grammar paper, and the reasoning paper. You can click on them here if you want to see a full walkthrough of how to answer those questions. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.